Hi, I'm Ed Begley, and I just talked to Kara, and it was quite a motivating experience for me, and it will be for you. Listen to what she has to say. There are many words of wisdom. Thank you, Kara.
Hi friends, it's Kara. Welcome back to Really Famous. Today I'm talking to Ed Begley Jr., the one-of-a-kind actor and one of the original environmental activists. You may have seen him recently on Better Call Saul. He played Cliff Maine, or on Young Sheldon, where he was Dr. Linkletter. Maybe when you think of Ed, it's Victor Ehrlich, you see, from St. Elsewhere. Well, now you're about to get to know Ed Begley Jr. in real life. And he is most definitely one of a kind. And his life has been quite something. He's had ups and downs of all sorts, including countless adventures with Hollywood icons, years of addiction, and all kinds of escapades and dangerous situations he got himself into. He talks about a lot of them in his new memoir, To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It. And we analyze his choices, insights, and even his lies here today. We taped this talk at the voice studio SoundBOX LA. And at the end of today's talk with Ed, I'm sharing a short, fun chat that I had with Tim Friedlander, the owner of the studio and a veteran voice actor, about all kinds of fun dish on what exactly goes on behind the scenes of some of our favorite TV shows, films, and video games. We talk about dubbing famous actors' voices, being the voice of political ads, being the voice of a video game, and Tim also shares a philosophical gem that voice actors use, and now, as a therapist, I am definitely adopting into my everyday practice and advice, and we're sharing it with you. So look forward to that, and first will come my chat with Ed. But before that, a word from our sponsors. All right, let me make sure my phone is off too.
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to take my phone out first in a minute because I have a list of things that...
Sure, do it whenever you need.
Not a list of questions because I don't work that way. I just personally like to get to know you.
I like that a lot.
So it's,
conversation.
Yes. Just like, kind of like your book you just wrote.
Yep, thank you.
It seemed like you had said that you had somebody else who was going to write it for you.
Yes.
But then you started writing down notes for that person?
Yeah, there was never an actual person by name or in any way. It was just suggested that it might be easier for me if I had a ghostwriter. So I said, okay, let me think about it. I'm not sure if I'm ready to write a memoir or even have a ghostwriter. Let me think about it. My daughter started recording on her smartphone, and then I started to take notes when she wasn't available. I went, I'm not giving this to anyone, including my daughter. I like it so much, the process of writing it. I want to do it all myself, and I had a ball.
That's great, because it seems like you had a ball, and it seems very much, I don't know you personally until now, but it seems like I have a sense of you from the book.
How
Not
nice.
just what you're writing about, but from your style of just writing the book as you're thinking it.
Right. That's what I hoped for, and I'm glad you felt it turned out that way.
I would say success on that.
Bless you. It's pronounced Kara, right?
It is.
Thank you, Kara.
So we're talking about your book right now that I just finished reading a few days ago.
Bless you.
And it was an absolute pleasure.
You're so nice to say that. Thank you, Kara.
So your book is called To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It.
And that's a line actually uttered by my dear friend Dick Stahl, a wonderful actor, Richard Stahl or Dick Stahl. It was not a line he said on stage with a committee or any of those improv groups, not a line he said in a TV show or movie. He said it in life. He was supposed to go. Many of us became enamored with the spiritual path after the Beatles met the Maharishi. So we all tried different ways to connect with things like that. And he booked a very type A kind of a trip, to get to this Temple of Tranquility there somewhere in Indonesia, I believe. And he had a flight and another flight and a merchant marine vessel, a berth on that. And everything went wrong, as things sometimes do. He missed the flight, in Hawaii, the connection. So then he was late getting to the Philippines. Then there wasn't another merchant marine vessel for a week. And then monsoon season started. And by the time he ran up the dock and got into a taxi, he said to the taxi driver, "The Temple of Tranquility, and step on it." And the taxi driver found it quite amusing. He didn't want to spoil his tip, so he tried to keep it quiet, but couldn't. And Dick started to laugh, and it was, of course, a wonderful, ironic thing. And I went, if I ever write a book, that's going to be the title.
Uh-huh. Perfect.
Because believe me, I tried to rush serenity in many different ways, all of them foolish.
What were some of those ways?
I tried to at first, the mere idea of rushing serenity is not the way it works. You have to find it. You have to realize you don't have to get enlightened. You are enlightened already. Kara's enlightened sitting in that chair if you just let it be, and so am I. And also the idea of then trying to find a spiritual path and to get serenity out of a bottle of Stolichnaya, that's probably not the best way to have sustainable serenity. You can get someone who can feel quite serene having a bottle of Stoli, or to have a couple lines of some drugs or what have you, can feel briefly okay, but in the long run, it's a net loss. For me, maybe so there are people out there that don't have that experience. Mine is, it's a big, big, very quantifiable net loss to try to find serenity in that way, so I quit that too.
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of years of that.
I did. 71 through 78, I drank a quart of vodka every day, and I operated a vehicle, so I wouldn't recommend that to any young people listening.
Yeah, so you started drinking, like, what age?
I started, before the drinking, I started stealing the pills out of my dad's medicine chest. And he wasn't really taking them because he was sober for years. The doctor said, here, take these if you can't sleep. And he went, I don't want to start taking pills, so he didn't. Mm-hmm. So I got away with it for a while, just taking one here, the second one there. And that was my first addiction, was that. And then it became pot. And then finally, after he passed away in 71, I kind of felt, well, I should keep up the alcoholic, side of the Irish family and start drinking. It seems quite romantic. I want to be like Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole and all those wonderful British actors, and Tony Hopkins. They get good and drunk. Oliver Reed, yeah, that's what I want to do. If I get drunk, I'll be a wonderful actor. So I started drinking in hopes of improving my acting game, and that doesn't quite work that way either. And so I drank a good deal of liquor in a relatively short period of time, a lifetime's amount of it, but I just drank it in about 7 or 8 years.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot. And you started young and you kept going. And it's pretty amazing that you made it. Amazing.
I did get arrested more than once, but I never really spent any jail time. I didn't get arrested for being under the influence, I don't think, ever. I got arrested for an illegal left turn or what have you. But the cops back then were very palsy-walsy about certain things, and drinking was one of them.
There are so many stories in your book. So you've had a very full life, like full to the max.
I'll say.
I mean, it's like a who's who of Hollywood. You have stories about everybody. I have a whole list of them that I was going to bring out, and I may bring out soon because there are a few of them that I would like you to share also.
Sure.
But it's like you're meeting this one and that one, and the Beatles, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Marlon Brando, and Jack Nicholson, and just so many people. And you're in these situations with them in real life. It's not necessarily work situations.
Right.
So what is the deal? Like, how did you meet this many people? Was it because of your father initially, or because he was famous? And like, how did all this happen?
It was exactly that. I'm like Zelig or Chauncey Gardner or Forrest Gump. I'm in the right place at the right time, and nobody knows quite how I got there, including me. But I had a free pass. I had a backstage pass. I was fully laminated from birth because of the nature of my father. He'd won an Academy Award. He was in 12 Angry Men. He was a very well-respected actor in films and TV and films and on stage on Broadway. So people go, oh, Ed Begley's son, I kind of got a free pass without ever asking for it. I had won the lottery, and I didn't even buy a ticket. I had no idea. For a while, I was even somewhat ingrate. I was something of an ingrate because I thought, why am I not getting the parts in a timely manner that I deserve? I want to work on Gunsmoke, and I want to work on Perry Mason, and I want to work on, Wagon Train. Dad, get me a series, for God's sake. I'm sure my father can pick up the phone and they'll hire me for a TV series. It doesn't work like that at all. My father didn't have the power to do that, number one. Number two, I wouldn't have appreciated had he done that. So
back up, though. Did you actually ask him to get you these
No,
parts?
Thank God. I would have gotten slapped, I'm sure, or something else. I would have had some form of corporal punishment or otherwise, because it was absurd. But I realized years later that I definitely thought it. I really, I had it all wrong. Wake me when I'm famous, I think, was the basic mantra that I had going on in the back of my head. But that's not the way to do it. I finally started to study, and then I began to work as an actor. I still hadn't studied enough, but I began.
So you wanted to follow in his footsteps?
I did, very much so. I think if he had been a plumber, I'd be fitting pipe now.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
why?
Just because he was so large and powerful and mighty. And back then, we'd go to a men's club called the Lambs Club, and all that was just swell in 1950, whatever, when I first started to take notice of the men's club called the Lambs Club. I thought that was just fine. Looking back at the pictures now, there were no people of color back there at all in that period. No women were allowed to be members back then. It was just crazy. White privilege seemed just fine by me because I was a recipient of it. But we didn't know the term back then. It was just the way things work. You get stopped by the Sheriff's Department, L.A. County Sheriff's Department, Christmas Eve, just hammered drunk and on other medications. Just drive safe going home, buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
Not so much for the guys that I hit. One of the guys, 4 African-American guys that I hit and raked along the right side of their car, I don't think it would have gone down the same if the roles had been reversed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a different era. And, that's interesting to look back on now. You didn't realize it then. It wasn't really brought. The term white privilege wasn't a thing.
No, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was unlucky. People compare me to my dad. Why do they compare me to my father? I'm different than him, and why am I not getting the parts that I should be getting? I should be getting some of these good parts without ever really doing the hard work. I studied a bit, but I was more interested in partying, going to Tana's, and driving drunk.
So you wanted that lifestyle more than
to do the work, yes. I didn't. When I finally started doing the work, then I started to get better parts, of course. But prior to that, I had bad decision making back then because I was high from really 1965 a lot of the time to 1971, then high all the time through 78, and then finally 79 when I finally quit everything.
So were you self-medicating in some way, do you think? Were you trying to ease whatever
No
suffering?
question.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, and I really believe that drugs and alcohol saved me before it killed me because I was such a wreck emotionally about many different things.
Okay, what things?
Well, like finding out that my mother wasn't my mother. When I got the birth certificate in the first chapter.
Okay.
My father gives me the birth certificate, and I could show it to you now if I had it in my pocket. It's blank under the mother's name. Mother, there's nothing there because it was a bit of a scandal because my father had not one but 2 children with a woman that was not at all his wife, a page at NBC he had taken up with. And I have no idea what the agreement was. My birth mother, Sandy, knew about my adoptive mother, I suppose, my stepmother. I know they knew about each other. I don't know what they knew, what the agreement was. Ed's going to have babies with this other woman. Are you cool with that or what? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm,
they hid it. And my dad just showed up with 2 babies that kind of looked like him. Such things happened back in that day because, certain people were all powerful.
Right. So what? Okay, yes, because that's how you open your book.
Yeah.
And it's really such a large part of, I would think, like what were you thinking to yourself, because it wasn't something you were talking about, right? Like just like you said, you weren't sure what the arrangement was. So what were you thinking inside of yourself at that time?
I was thinking, part of me was in a great deal of real pain about it, about what that meant, and how did I not know that woman that I loved and saw several times a year was my mother? How did I miss that clue? Bruce Willis is dead throughout the whole movie. Rosebud was a sled. I kind of missed,
Hey, you're giving away all the spoilers here.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't quite get what was going on, though it was there right in front of me. And so I medicated because of that. But I also, when I really began to dig deeper into it, I kind of liked the victim mode. I found that my mom wasn't my mom, and I found a body in my trash, and oh my God, I got evicted from my place, and I had to go on the road and live out of my Jeep, and all this victim stuff. I loved it because it gave me another reason to drink. Well, you know what? I told Eddie to stop drinking, but I'm going to get off his case because if anybody's got something to drink about, it's him. The accident the same day, he got stabbed waiting for a bus at Western Imperial. Same day, a year later, he had his femur broken, found a body in the trash, XYZ, all this different stuff where I was the victim. I reveled in it, I think.
When did you realize that you reveled in it?
When I got sober finally when I was 30.
So what did that come from? Did that come from like the program or therapy or a lot of like self-reflection? How did you come to these realizations about yourself?
Mostly self-reflection. I thought about it. I finally was not as clouded over. I was not, didn't have that cloud. That's the problem with drugs and alcohol. I started doing that stuff when I was almost 16. And when you do that, when you start numbing the pain, you also numb the good feelings too. You're numb to good and bad experiences, so you stop growing. If you can't feel what hot or cold is, you're going to get burned all the time. So I stopped growing. So when I finally got sober in 1979, I was really 16 or 17 years old. Emotionally. Yeah. So I began to think about things, and then I did therapy briefly, really. I got so much out of it so quickly, I didn't feel the need to do it forever. I did it for a short period of time and got a tremendous amount. And I realized if I stayed sober and didn't do that other kind of bad behavior, other addictive things like gambling, and philandering and stuff like that, that ultimately made me as unhappy as it would make my wife or girlfriend, at the time. Mm-hmm. So if I stopped doing that, I wouldn't be in pain anymore because it was bad. Even for the perpetrator, it was bad. I felt shitty all the time because I was living a lie.
Right. Okay. So when you were working, okay, so let's put me in the time frame of St. Elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I have to go to that first because
it was a big job, my first really great job.
And I loved that show. I used to watch with my dad.
Oh, wow.
And it was it's one of our all-time favorites.
Yeah, mine too.
Right?
Just as a spectator. Now, forget that I'm in it.
So
I would have watched it even if I wasn't in it. I love that show.
Okay. And so you also have an interesting story that I would love for you to share, if you don't mind sharing it again, about the shirt, the Hawaiian shirt.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely tell that story. And a little preview story to it that I think you'll like, too. I did not go in and audition for the role of Dr. Victor Ehrlich. I auditioned for Dr. Peter White. Ehrlich was a character unknown to me. The role of Dr. Peter White was a regular. I auditioned for it, and I didn't get it. Terrence Knox got it. I'd never heard of him. Turns out he was very good in the part. Just because I never heard him, he was a fine actor and deserved the part. They threw me a bone, gave me a two-line part that had literally 2 lines in the pilot script. They said, we're going to maybe put some more in. We'd love to have you in our show. I'm sorry it's not the role of Peter White, the regular role. So I said, well, I'll take it. Maybe something will happen. Season 2, Dr. Peter White gets shot in the balls and then in the stomach because he turned out to be the hospital rapist. That's season 2. I was in all of the episodes of the show, save one where they go back in time, but a flashback episode. But I was in every other episode. It was one of the major characters in the show was Dr. Victor Ehrlich. So once again, I didn't get what I wanted, and what I got was much better than what I ever had wanted.
Yeah, I think that's super common also in life. If you look at it that way also.
Yeah.
You have the ability later to be like, you know what? It was a good thing I didn't get that. It's a good
Very
thing.
Good.
Because if I had, I would be, who knows what my next job would be.
Every single thing that happened to me, all of it, that night on Sunset Boulevard hitting the cars, all the other horrible things that happened, the body in the trash, all of it, not getting the part. It was all essential so that I'd be sitting here in this chair with you, this moment. Here it comes, this one. We have everything that we need.
Right now.
We can actually be in the now, this moment. This is it, as Alan Watts so wisely said. This is it. Right now, here it comes again, this one. That's all you get. We both know that past happened just a few moments ago when I snapped before. We know that the future is going to happen again, and you plan for it as best you can. But you don't spend too much time in the past or the future. You live in the present, and what a life it can be.
Okay. Yes, and yes, but I can't let 2 things go. You didn't tell the story yet. I still need the Hawaiian shirt story.
Oh, the Hawaiian, that's right.
And then we're also going to, because you mentioned it a few times, the dead body in your garbage can, you'll have to explain that too.
I'll tell that one as well.
Okay, but let's go back to St. Elsewhere. And before we jump to the next one, I do need to sit in St. Elsewhere for a moment. So let's start with the story.
We'll stay there at St. Elsewhere for a while. So I get this 2-line part that right away, by the time they do the next draft, the blue draft, or the green draft, the subsequent versions of the script, they've given me more lines. Now I have like 4 or 5 lines, which is pretty good in a pilot like that. 4 or 5 lines is a part. It's not a regular yet. I'm just in an episode, but it looks like there might be more in the second or third episode. And I won't jump ahead in the story. I'll just tell you I finally go in having gotten this bonus of not 1 or 2, but I think 4 lines in the pilot of St. Elsewhere. You have to go in for your wardrobe fitting. So I go in for the wardrobe fitting, and wardrobe fittings are essential. You always learn a lot about the character, and you also learn some key things like, we're not shooting that scene tomorrow as planned. We're shooting it next week. We're not shooting it out in the valley where we planned. We got to go to Barstow because that's got the right kind of junkyard we need to. So you learn some important things about the character and about your life and schedule. And such was the case when I met Bob Moore, the guy that was a wardrobe designer, the costume designer for St. Elsewhere. He had some different lab coats for me to try on and some kind of normal clothes that went underneath it, normal slacks and what have you, and some shirts. And then he had some Hawaiian shirts. I went, who are those for? Is that for our show too? He said, yeah, they're actually for your character. I'm not sure I get what's with the Hawaiian shirt. He said, well, your character's from California. I hadn't heard that. I didn't know that. So I learned my character's from California. This guy, he's the department head, wardrobe department. He wants to try Hawaiian shirts. I give him the same courtesy I would afford any director, producer, writer. Let's try whatever you like. You're a creative person in charge of a department. Let's try it. So we go over with a Hawaiian shirt on me and the pants not quite hemmed, they're kind of waiting to be hemmed down at the bottom. And I go in and I meet Mark Tinker, John Macius, and Josh Brand and John Falsey. They're all there, and Josh and John are like, Hawaiian shirt, really? Okay, maybe. And Macius goes, I think it's okay, and Mark Tinker seems to be okay, and then Bruce Paltrow comes in.
Right, so Bruce Paltrow, can we just set it up for people who maybe don't even know who he is?
Oh, I'm going to tell you who he is.
Okay, good.
Bruce Paltrow comes in, and the room gets very still because he just stops and looks at me. He goes, let me just see if I understand what's happening here. Is he going to clown school as well as medical school? Is there now in a clown academy? Because you have him in a clown shirt. Is that what you had in mind, a clown shirt? Bob Moore says, because Bruce Paltrow is a very powerful man at this point. He's done White Shadow for a successful couple of seasons, and he's the executive producer of the top dog on this show, St. Elsewhere. And so when he's upset, everybody knows about it, and everybody was very concerned if Bruce liked them or hated them. And right away, it's my first meeting. He was not there somehow when I read for Dr. Peter White and didn't get it, but he's there now. And so I say, hi, Mr. Paltrow, Ed Begley. And I say, I know who you are. Nice to meet you. He says, he's trying not to be rude, but he said, I hate it. Mark Takeaways in, Bruce, let's just think about it a while. I think it works. And Macius says, I like it a lot. It's funny and in a good way. So he says, fine. Bruce Paltrow goes, fine. You know what? Do it any way you want. You can see, Ed, welcome to the show. You can see the way they treat me around here. They spit in my face, and then they act like they don't even care about my opinion. Good luck to you all. And he goes back to his office. I went, oh, my God. I'm going to be fired before I even shoot a scene. He hates me, hates the wardrobe. Bob Moore was told to keep the wardrobe of the Hawaiian shirt. It proved to be a very good choice. It really enhanced the character of the thing. Bruce Paltrow, the man who hated me at first, didn't hate me at all, ever. That's just the way he loved talking to people. He became my greatest friend and ally to when he passed. And we hung out when we shot the show, years after we shot the show. He was my greatest ally in the creative process of the show. I got very lucky when I met Bruce Paltrow.
Very, very cool. And so St. Elsewhere, just another note on St. Elsewhere, since I told you I need to stay there for a minute, is all of these actors together before they had gone on to do other things too. A lot of big names in that show. Big names. Ray Liotta is one of the first things he did, was an episode of our first thing of note. He'd done many, plays and things and other, things. Robert Davi, my God, Denzel Washington was a regular on the show, and he was clearly a brilliant, brilliant actor, and really got recognized during St. Elsewhere for that. And Bruce Paltrow, and Denzel, to his wonderful credit, gave Bruce the acknowledgement for this. Bruce Paltrow let him out of his contract for a few episodes so that he could do Glory, so he could do,
Cry Freedom and do these wonderful movies while he was supposed to be doing St. Elsewhere. Yeah. We didn't always come back on time for our, starting to do the fall episode. Some of us were running late from a movie or something we were doing, and Bruce would always try to work it out. Very generous man. He acted tough, but he was anything but. He was one of the sweetest guys, the most generous guys I ever worked with. And he really made me a TV star, and I've worked ever since from that day that I met him.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had any problem getting work.
Yeah, it really is like some people can make such a difference. I don't even know if they know what a difference. I mean, I guess he would know what a difference he made for you, for Denzel Washington, for others. But it is amazing how much impact people can have on others just by small little decisions.
Gave so many guys a shot at directing. Eric Launaville, Thomas Carter, all these wonderful actors that worked on White Shadow, gave them all a shot at directing. We had a lot of diversity in the cast, too. We had Alfre Woodard, who was brilliant in the show. We had all these incredible people. I feel blessed to have worked with them all those years. And the best writers, Tom Fontana, Channing Gibson, Chick Egley, just amazing writers.
So, side note about wardrobe, when I started to read your story about it, it reminded me of something that someone I think once told me. Patrick Fabian. I
love Patrick Fabian, by the way. Is he great?
So do I. He's fantastic. What a great guy. So
I love that man.
Right. So tell me why you love that man, because I think it would be nice for him to hear that.
Well, I worked on Better Call Saul. I'd have an episode here or there. But the kindness that he extended to me, he's a regular. I'm in and out for sometimes just one episode a whole season, sometimes none. There was an episode, a season or two in which I had no episodes. He welcomed me each time with a friendship and a camaraderie and assistance, with various things. I'm a good deal older than him and starting to slow down physically in many ways because of a number of things, some of which I write about in the book. And so he just helped me in ways you can't imagine. The most generous guy ever. And not just to me, to everybody. He's just an amazing, amazing guy. If everybody was like him on every show, we would have no problem shooting anything. I wouldn't restrict it to show business. He's a guy that everyone should emulate. I really adore that man.
I agree. That's Patrick for sure. That sounds exactly like Patrick. And I agree that we need more Patricks in the world.
We sure do.
So he told me a story once about wardrobe, that so many things can change after you're offered a job as an actor, but once you go in for wardrobe, that's it. It's going to happen. So that is like the thing that he's like, when I get the phone call for wardrobe, then I know it's going to happen.
Yep. And it actually holds up in different things where there's been some arbitration about, he hadn't really started working on the movie as an actor, so that's why we terminated him. We didn't give him any residuals or the pay for the thing. Well, hold on. Didn't he go have a wardrobe fitting? He did? Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Wardrobe fitting makes it very official.
Oh, okay.
Showing up on the set for the first day of shooting also makes it official. Sometimes they go, we got to change that character. We didn't like whatever the way he looked in the wardrobe or whatever. We didn't think he looked like that, whatever they attempt to do. If you go for the wardrobe fitting, it's the same as showing up to shoot. You have worked on the movie and need to be paid whatever has been agreed upon, and you can't just let them go without cause.
Got it. So Better Call Saul was that was such an amazing series. So great. Loved it. So you were happy to be part of that, I guess.
Very much so. Mm-hmm. I'd seen Breaking Bad, one of the best television shows in the history of TV. There was back in my father's day, there was so much great television. Pat Chayefsky would write the thing and Sidney Lumet would direct it, and incredible writers. Rod Serling wrote patterns that my father did as a teleplay, then as a movie. Great writers. It was considered the golden age of television. And I think that's true. I think it was the golden age of television. This is now the platinum age of television, with what Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould are doing, not once but twice, Breaking Bad, then Better Call Saul, and, Handmaid's Tale and all of that. It's amazing the television that's going on today. It's just extraordinary. The Bear is incredible. Think of the shows that are on now. So original, so like nothing you've ever seen before. Ozark was a great show. There's so many, I can't think of them offhand, but just shows that have been life-changing, just really incredible work. It's good, better than most features I've worked on.
Yeah, the quality is really pretty incredible at this point. I think that I may be wrong on my facts, but I think Vince Gilligan is working on a new series. Well, not right now, but with Ray Seahorn from Better Call Saul.
I've heard rumors to that effect myself.
so.
When the strike is over, that might occur. I would sure like to see her in another show. I'm a big, big fan of Ray Seahorn.
She's amazing, too. She should be everywhere.
She should be. She's the best of the best.
Uh-huh.
The two of them.
And then maybe you can get in there, too, on the new series.
I'll try and worm my way in.
I think you should. Well, look, you're Forrest Gump. You can be here, there, and everywhere.
That's right.
So why wouldn't you be on set of that?
Why wouldn't I? Exactly.
That makes perfect sense.
I'll do craft service on their show.
Exactly. You can go in for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get back for a second to the story about well, before we go to the story about the garbage can, I need to talk a little bit about Marlon Brando.
Sure.
And Jack Nicholson. Because you had friendships with these people. Like, it wasn't just like you just happened to meet them for a minute like Forrest Gump. You had these friendships where you would see them over and over again, and they were interesting friendships. So you were friends with Jack Nicholson first, right? And he lived next door to Marlon Brando? Am I getting that right?
That's correct. They lived next door to... Marlon has passed, of course, but they lived next door to each other for many, many years.
Do you talk to Jack still?
I do have the good fortune to speak to him on a fairly regular basis. I mean,
that's amazing.
A couple of times a year being a fairly regular basis, and I'm happy with whatever time he affords me. He's a great friend, a great actor, a great man. He's been so generous with me, I don't know how to quantify it.
But again, people have been so generous with you. What do you think that is about?
I have no idea, but I don't want them to figure it out. You better not tell them in this show. Don't expose me for the fraud I am. I swear to God, I'm going to be very upset with you.
I mean, you've mentioned it over and over again that you're a fraud, right? But everybody has all this goodwill towards you. So what do you...
There are good con men and there are people who are not so good at it. I've got them all fooled. My wife will tell you. Talk to Rochelle, my wife, about it. She'll tell you what it really is.
Well, it's a lot of fooling you're doing then. A lot. I had a thought, actually, that this reminds me of while I was reading the book, which is you have lied very easily in your life. A lot.
I did. I was a very good liar.
A lot of lies.
Because early on, I was a bad liar. I didn't quite get some key, believability factors about it to really, it's got to be somewhat believable. But having said that, if you make it just a little bit weird, it becomes, again, more believable. I can't believe what happened. What happened? You got stuck in traffic? No. Somebody stole my battery. Can you believe it? Somebody jacked open the hood and stole my battery. This is before I was driving electric cars,
Mm-hmm.
It was so wild that someone stole your battery. Wow. Everybody believed it, because it was just who would make up a story about someone stealing their battery? It's just too far afield.
Yeah, that was the thing. The more bizarre it is, the more believable.
If you're too drunk or you're not thinking, you add too many details, then right away it's like, oh, okay, too many details. This is all baloney. You can't go that far, but one little twist of a good detail, it would be a great lie, and it could usually hold up.
Okay, so why all the lies besides to get yourself out of trouble?
I was so amazed that my father pulled off that lie about who my mother was. I guess I wanted to see if I could do it.
So
it was an acting exercise.
Do you think that it has something to do with that?
It might have, but the good news is I stopped doing it in 1979 when I got sober. Mostly stopped doing it. I stopped doing it with sobriety, with who paid the check or whatever, anything you could imagine, except one minor detail. I was allowed to lie to half the population of the planet known as women. That was still kind of allowed for their own good. Not to tell the truth about, Ed, why is your hair wet? My hair. I was dropped by Harry Deans and I jumped in the sauna with him. That's why my hair was wet because of the shower. And why did I take a shower? One can only imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of stuff I still did through the late 80s, early 90s. I did it rarely after, let's say, 1990. And certainly stopped doing it by like 93 or something like that. I don't think I've told a lie about anything from a traffic light to a dalliance. I haven't had any extracurricular activities for quite a few years. I've been with one woman and one only, so it's much easier to keep your story straight when you're telling the truth. The truth is the easiest thing to remember.
Right. No lies since 1993?
No, 1994, my wife didn't. You see, you ask a good questions, and I certainly don't want to lie sitting here. So the truth is, in 1995, I was doing a play in Boston, a David Mamet play, and this very attractive young lady came to visit me in Boston to see the play, to see rehearsal or something, from Germany. She came all the way from Germany to visit me, and she stayed with me. But there was, and this is the truth now too, there was no amorous activities of any sort. She just came and she stayed there with me for a few days and went home. Nothing happened. So because nothing happened, I thought it was okay to tell my then girlfriend, soon to be wife in 2000, 5 years later, my wife, but mother of my child in 1999, it was okay to tell her a lie about why I hadn't called back. I couldn't call back because that young lady from Germany was there at the apartment where I was, staying while doing this play in Boston. And so I told my wife the reason I didn't get her message because the cat walked on the answering machine. She knew I had a cat. She knew I'd brought an answering machine with me so I'd have a place to collect the calls. But I told her that the cat had walked on the answering machine. So Rochelle has got a good nose for baloney, my wife and then my girlfriend. The first thing she did when she came to Boston to see the play was she walked in the bedroom and looked at the answering machine. The erase all button was not on the top of the answering machine. It was on the side. So how could a cat walking on the answering machine hit the button to erase all?
Okay.
So that was the last lie. That's the last lie I think I've told to anybody. That was 1995.
Okay. So for real, when you are considering lying about something, do you actually stop yourself and say, wait, I no longer lie?
I didn't even think about lying. In fact, now it's such a pain in the ass to have a conversation with me. Yeah, so what happened? Like I just did. That was 94. No, it was 95. I have to stop. You don't care if it was 94 or 95. I could leave it that way, but it isn't true. It was the year after 94. It was 95 because I have these bookmarks in my head.
Yeah.
I know when things happened, most important things, and I can do that. So I tell a level of detail that is all true, but people really don't want it. It's too many details just because I don't want to lie. Oh, I just said it was that. It was really this. People don't give a shit. They just want to finish up your story.
Right.
And I don't care if it's 94 or 5.
Okay. So why did you decide no more lying?
Because it's too hard to remember. I was starting to get older and I realized I couldn't remember as well what lie you told to who. You couldn't keep track of it. Too hard. The truth is the best story. It really is always the best story because it's the easiest one to remember.
So it's as simple as that? Nothing else happened at that one juncture?
No. It's the easiest to remember and it's the least painful for anybody. I don't have any pain for having told the wrong thing, that somebody makes a decision based on something that is untrue. Why do all that? Here's what's really happening. I really didn't read your book. I said I'd read it. I skimmed it. And so that's why I didn't know anything about the blah, blah, blah. Maybe somebody wants to hear that, maybe they don't, but sometimes in the right situation, that's the right thing to do. Sometimes it's best to just say, well, I'm not sure, I can't really remember how much of it I read, but I think I read a lot of it,
Yeah.
I mean, it's best to tell the truth in most situations. Sometimes you don't need to give every detail when it could be hurtful to someone, let's say. You don't need to do it, but if you do, somebody says, no, I really need to know. You tell me right now because I'm asking you point blank. Did you read every page of the book? People are going to say whatever they say. But
So are you good at detecting lies?
No, I'm not as good as I used to because I have glaucoma. I can't see as well as I used to see that little that little tick.
Uh-huh.
And it usually doesn't matter if somebody's lying to me or not. It's what they want me to know right now. Is that story that turns out I later learned was untrue. Did they forget? I give people wide berth with benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't remember. Maybe they thought they had actually done X, Y, and Z. But this is what they're saying now, and this is verifiably true because I'm standing here and the car is pulled up at the time specified. So that must have been true what they told me, the most recent thing they told me. So, okay, let's get in the car and go. Everything's fine.
So do you think I really read your book?
I know you read it.
Excellent. How do you know?
the way that you said it and the detail that you've had thus far, I know you read all of it.
Okay. So,
but I don't. People who haven't read it, and I can tell by the way they're kind of phrasing things, I don't call them on it. Certainly, what's the future in that?
Right.
Nice enough to them to try to read some of it. I'm a very much glass half full guy. The glass has to be just to have a few drops in it, and I'm satisfied.
Yeah. See, this is all. I find this all very interesting that you have so many different aspects of yourself that aren't necessarily you wouldn't think they would belong together. So you're an optimist, you're saying.
I am.
But you also had a big drug problem.
Yeah.
And you played the victim to yourself.
Yeah.
So do you see what I'm saying about all of that doesn't add up? And not that it doesn't add up that I don't believe you, but it's an interesting what's the word I'm looking for? Dichotomy, that's the word.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, there are many dichotomies going on.
Probably.
So, and again, and I don't want to give away the ending of your book either, but I really appreciated the way that you ended it too, because and we'll talk about this too if you don't mind, you talk about how, is it okay to spoil the ending kind of?
Yes, you can do that. It's fine.
So you have Parkinson's.
I do. I hid it for years. I didn't even know I had it for 12 years, from 2004 to 2016. I knew something was up. Wow, I guess I'm getting older quicker than I thought. I can't quite ride my bike. It's not as easy to ride up to Mulholland and down around Franklin Canyon Lake. But I'm getting older, okay. Wow, I'm really stiff getting up from that table. Wow, okay. I guess I'm just getting older. Then after 12 years of that, 2016, I went to a speech therapist because I was starting to slur my words, as I find myself doing even a bit today. I'm not as articulate. I'm not enunciating the way I used to be able to, really clearly. And so I went to the speech therapist. After the first session with her, she called up my doctor and said, do you know that your patient has Parkinson? Does he know, and do you know that? Because it's not on his chart. And my doctor said, no, I did not know that, but that solves some mysteries. About 2004, we did all kinds of tests because it seemed like I had a brain lesion from everything that was happening then. It was not a brain lesion, and I wasn't twitching at the time. I wasn't doing that, what they call pilling, like one would try to hold a pill. I'm manufacturing the thing right now by trying to touch and wiggle my thumb and forefinger. That's what pilling. And I started doing that occasionally, but didn't report it to my doctor in 2004 because it wasn't happening. Mm-hmm. It happened a year before, 6 months before. It happened a few months afterwards, but I didn't report that. I thought that was just, I don't know what that was. That was the Rosetta Stone to solve the hieroglyphics, the whole thing. Uh-huh. And she figured it out after one, because she had a lot of Parkinson's patients. Then I later learned my cousin also, after I left his birthday party years ago, like 10, 12 years ago, left his birthday party, his very high-end neurologist friend said, how long has your cousin had Parkinson's? And he said, my cousin doesn't have Parkinson's. He would tell me that. No, he does, because if he holds his hand this way, he's dragging his left foot. Hmm. It was all there, like we spoke about a moment ago. Bruce Willis was dead all along in The Sixth Sense, and Rosebud was a sled. It was there in the first frame. Like Dave Mamet writes famously in his book about writing, you realize that it was there all along.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. My son and I were watching Only Murders in the Building. Do you watch that?
I haven't seen it, but I got to see it. I love those two guys.
Oh, you're going to love them even more in this.
Yeah.
They're so good. And with Selena Gomez, the trio,
I love her
fabulous.
Too. She's wonderful. I got to see that. Thanks for reminding me.
Please do.
That's a do it tonight thing.
Yeah,
Thank
do
you.
it tonight. And in fact, we're rewatching it now. So season 3 just ended. So we're missing it so much that we started with season 1 again. And I don't rewatch things often. We're rewatching this, and it's a pleasure. My point was, what was my point? Oh, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but one of the endings, it was there from the beginning.
That's
it was
right.
That exact thing. And I don't know if you would call it the same thing as Chekhov's gun, but that's kind of what I was teaching my son. It's like if the gun shows up in Act 1, it's going to go off in Act 3.
Exactly.
Interesting. So, okay, let me go back to what we were talking about, though, which is, okay, so when you found out it's Parkinson's, how did you feel sorry for yourself? Did you feel like a victim?
I was at a restaurant. I called up. My doctor said, give me a call. I need to talk to you. And he gave me the news. I was out at a restaurant called Hugo's in the Valley. We go to a lot. I sat there with Dabney Coleman's son, who had just come by coincidence to have dinner with us that night, told him the news, and my wife the news, and my daughter. So, but, I've heard this is, of all the times to get Parkinson's, this is a a good time because the cavalry is coming soon, everyone thinks. This was 2016, a few years ago. The cavalry isn't entirely here yet, but I think they're starting to assemble.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told her that and painted put a nice picture on it as best I could. But I went home and I thought, I hope and pray I have just at least 3 years like my friend Bob Hoskins had. The wonderful actor Bob Hoskins had Parkinson's, and it was 3 years from diagnosis to death. From the same call I just got, Bob, you have Parkinson's, to goodbye, Bob, with 3 years. I went, will I get a full 3? I thought that was it. There's a Don Henley song, I Will Not Go Quietly. Pardon me. And Rochelle, my wife, wouldn't go quietly. I did all the, my throat tightens up sometimes from Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
I did all the carbidopa, levodopa, neurologist stuff. It works very well. Gave me some relief right away. Then for extra credit, she found glutathione, hyperbaric chamber, NAD, stem cells, did all that stuff. I'm now doing better than any of my friends are doing who've had it as long or longer, or longer, shorter. I'm doing very, very good. This is what it can look like. Let me get under here so you can see how much twitching there is. I don't see any,
I'm not
really.
seeing any twitching at all.
No. I could pass. I'm holding my hands out straight like a sobriety checkpoint kind of a thing.
Right.
And I think I could pass the sobriety.
And this is
checkpoint.
most days for you are like this?
What's that?
Are most days of the week like this for you?
It's very rare that I twitch at all. That's mostly from the
Wow.
carbidopa, levodopa. That's what neurologists recommend, and it's a good drug, and it works. It has side effects, and you have to use more of it every year that goes by. Not every year, but every 2 or 3 years. You got to bump it up a little bit. Eventually it gets to a lot. Then the medication has effects on you that are not entirely great. But it works very well. But the combination of that, doing what the neurologist, AMA, wonderful doctors tell you to do, and then doing glutathione. Oh, let me put all this, I'll tell about the meds in a moment.
Yeah.
Vigorous exercise every day. I exercise every day. I go to the Nautilus Plus. I do the whole upper body circuit. Nautilus Plus, I'm living in the past. LA, wow, that's a flash from the past.
Okay, I don't know what Nautilus Plus is.
No, because it stopped being a place to go to exercise in 1985.
Okay.
That's why you don't know about it. But I go to LA Fitness. My wife got me the membership. That's why I don't know much about it.
Okay.
And
So now that you're mentioning you go to LA Fitness, will people show up and go want to work out with you? I feel like they will.
Come over. People mostly very much respect your privacy at a club like that, any
Okay.
gym. Usually they're pretty good. People come up and say hello in a very nice way. They're fans, but very respectfully. But I go there and I do the upper body circuit, the whole circuit, every machine that has to do with upper body, I do that. Then I do 30 minutes up to level 12 or 14 on the recumbent bike, which is good for your back. It doesn't hurt your back or anything. And I do that for 30 full minutes, and I get a nice sweat out of that.
This is every day you do this?
I do it. It's rare that I miss. I haven't been today yet, but I will go later today because I had a lot of appointments today. It's very rare that I miss. So I always do it. And if I'm somewhere out of town, they don't have a gym at the hotel I'm staying at, I do those push-ups in the room. I do exercises in the room because with this disease, it's use it or lose it. So exercise is number one after the good meds they give you. And then the next would be NAD, glutathione, hyperbaric chamber, oxygen-rich hyperbaric, and then also stem cells, if you can get to them.
Okay, so Parkinson's is progressive.
It
so
is.
Does this all kind of slow the progression?
It slows it down a great deal.
Okay, so it helps with symptoms and
it
slows
slows it way
progression.
down.
That's pretty good.
I'll take that deal.
Yeah.
I learned that I had it by two separate top doctors, neurologists. They both confirmed that I had it. There's no doubt about does he have it, doesn't it? Does he not? I definitely had it. 2016. This is 2023, isn't it? That's 7 years later.
Yep.
Because it happened in August of 16. 7 years plus, and I'm doing this well. I feel like I've got bonus years already.
Yeah.
I feel very lucky.
Yeah. And there's that. Again, it's optimist, and you have a lot of gratitude, it seems like.
Yeah.
I'm an optimist fully, so I would say I totally get that, and it doesn't seem strange to me, that somebody just is automatically an optimist. I think there is good in everything, And you
I think so too.
And it's also, though, it's use it or lose it, similar to what you were saying, is that if you practice that kind of perspective on things, you'll have it more as well.
I agree.
Yeah. So you start looking at things like that and seeing the good and the reason why, oh, this is okay because, this is a good thing because, and it kind of goes back to even that St. Elsewhere part that you didn't get.
Right.
So, but the more that you look at things like that, the more you do start looking or look more at things like that.
It's true.
So, okay. So, and that, again, I was going to spoil the ending even more because that, like the final line, the last line of the book, I think it was, the last paragraph, was that like even with everything going on physically, your life is sublime.
It is. It's quite sublime. I have children, 3 wonderful children, 3 wonderful grandchildren. I'm blessed beyond measure, and I just feel grateful for every day.
Mm-hmm. We need to talk about the environment for sure.
Yep.
I mean, we don't need to discuss the environment per se, but I would like to talk about some of the ways that you've been involved in trying to make it better.
Thank you.
So, I mean, you were one of the trailblazers. Driving around your golf cart type vehicle for a while. You had a nice story about Cindy Williams in the book about that,
yes.
Driving her, picking her up on a date.
Definitely,
and basically
definitely. There was not a second date after. It was not exactly a babe magnet.
But you did become friends.
Say again?
You did become
we did.
friends.
Cindy and I became very good friends. She sadly passed away about a year ago now, and I see her daughter, Emily, since she passed, and I love her and love her family still, and she was like a sister to me, godmother to my daughter, Amanda, and just a great person, a great actress, a great film actress, too. People remember her from Laverne and Shirley, but she was in Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation.
The Conversation, by the way, is a film to see if you haven't seen it, to anybody listening.
Great movie. Great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah.
And what was the actor's name who was in The Godfather? He was only in like 4 movies. No, was that his name?
John Cazale.
Yes. He was in that. So
Brilliant
good.
Actor, yeah.
Yep. Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman. Alan Garfield.
Do you know Gene Hackman? I don't remember.
Gene Hackman is definitely, he's the star of the movie, really.
Did you know him, meaning personally?
I never met him. There's one I haven't met.
What are the odds of that? Slim to
I know.
None.
I got to get it going here and meet Gene Hackman.
That's right.
Fred Forrest was in it. Harrison Ford had a small part in it.
Did you know Harrison Ford was in E.T., or his voice was?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, fun fact, it was a scene in the school where Elliot, you do know E.T., right?
Oh, very well.
Okay. Elliot was in the school, and I think they were about to dissect the frogs.
Oh, yeah.
And then they were letting them loose, and the voice of the teacher was Harrison Ford.
I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Fun fact.
I'll listen for that.
So getting back to the environment, you also had the show, you had the TV show.
Yeah, my wife and I had a show, pardon me, called Living with Ed for 3 seasons, 2 on Home and Garden and 1 on Planet Green.
Yeah, my kids and my husband used to watch it, I remember.
It was a fun show.
It was a fun show. They liked it. So, okay, so you really do represent, like you are one of the main people, I would say, who authentically and for a long time represent the environment, doing the right thing.
I've been doing my personal action stuff for a long time, and that's important. But I found I need to clarify as years go by how we really cleaned up the air in L.A. Personal action, me doing what I did, had a lot to do with it. But there's got to be 3 legs to the tripod or it's going to fall over. It won't support good 3 legs to the table you're going to formulate good environmental legislation on. And one is personal action, very important. Corporate responsibility, to have companies that are going to make energy-efficient light bulbs or electric cars or solar panels. And the third one is good legislation. We have 4 times the cars in L.A. and millions more people, yet a fraction of the smog. And that is because all 3 of those things, personal action, going down the air board and talking about, the cars that I drive and others that are available. Corporate responsibility, people are starting to make cleaner cars and make cleaner power plants, and make cleaner internal combustion cars with catalytic converters, to do that kind of stuff back in the 70s. That's how we got there. And of course, the Clean Air Act is what gave us the cudgel, the enforcement possibility to really get them to clean up the air. It took all three. You can't do it with one or two. Personal action, people buying energy-efficient bulbs is wonderful, but it's not going to solve the problem. You need all three. You won't get anything done. 4 times the cars, millions more people, but a fraction of the smog. We did that with all three things.
Got it. Okay. So what is the smog situation now in LA?
Much improved for most of us. The vast majority, pardon me, it's much improved for most of us. The vast majority of us breathe cleaner air, but the people who still have dirty air, those people who live near the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, they're in San Pedro, and the people who live near shipping centers, fulfillment centers, and what have you, those people, freeway interchanges, there's a lot of smog around those isolated areas now. None of it's isolated. It's not like it's cordoned off, and sealed off by a dome or what have you. Air moves around, but there's a concentration of those particulate matter and other things, and nitrous oxide and all of it around those shipping centers.
All right, let's go back to you and analyzing you, because I should tell you that I am a therapist also.
I didn't know that. Wonderful.
So it's my pleasure to analyze exactly who you are and how you've coped with life.
It's my pleasure to be analyzed by someone as engaging as you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do think I will analyze you a little bit and say that I think that I have solved the question that I asked before, which is why so many people have been so gracious to you. I think it's because there is an authenticity underneath all the lies and everything else. There's a sincerity about you that comes across just naturally.
That's very sweet.
What do you think about that?
I like that theory. I hope it's true. I think it might be true. I'm going to embrace it.
You like people.
I do.
Not a lot of
people. I think people are basically good.
I don't think a lot of people think that way.
I think you're right.
And we're optimists, and we think that.
I do think that, and I think it's true. I've been all over this country, and I know we disagree about many things, but there's a heart and there's a kindness, too, in the country with these people that are thought to be on the other side of things for me, but they act like wonderful people in many ways because they are wonderful. They're very kind and generous in many ways and will save your neck in a pinch. So I think we have to factor that in when we talk about important issues that we're posed on. I'm not saying anybody should stop thinking what they think. People should have their belief system and act on it. But we all need to understand that we need each other.
Mm-hmm. What do people get wrong about you? What do they assume about you that's not accurate?
That's a good question. Oh, probably, yes, I know the answer to that very well. People think I'm in much better physical shape than I actually am because I was for so long in great physical shape. But about 2018, that started to change after a few years, knowing that I had Parkinson's. I didn't get depressed about it. I didn't let down my guard and stop exercising, but I could see with all that I was doing, there's still some other stuff that was just kind of creeping along at a slow pace that made things different. Not unlivable, not impossible, not torturous, just different. So I can't. And then also I wound up losing a good deal of my hearing, so that changes an evening out conversing with friends, and glaucoma on top of it. So I have trouble seeing, hearing, and feeling because of the Parkinson's. Other than that, I'm just fine.
You have definitely turned around that victim mode in your life.
I have. Yes, definitely.
It is a 180 from where you started.
Yeah. It's all a gift. And part of it is knowing that I lived to be 74 so far. I had a birthday September 16th. I'm 74. I never thought I'd live to be 60-something. For good reason. The way I drank and used drugs, I thought that would happen. For years, I thought an earthquake was going to hit California, was going to fall in the sea. I did not understand plate tectonics, nor geology, obviously. L.A. can't fall in the sea. It'll eventually meet up, part of the coast will meet up with the Aleutian Islands because of the way the plates are shifting, but that'll take, hundreds of thousands of years, I think, for that to occur. But it's not going to fall in the sea. And I thought the nuclear bomb was going to drop. I thought the earthquake, and then I thought, and this was the one most accurate of all, I'm probably going to die from drugs and alcohol, either driving or just from what I've ingested. And that was an odds-on favorite for most of my friends.
You've come a long way, Ed.
Yes, I have.
If there is one thing that you want people to remember you as or by, or something you want people to know about you, and some legacy you want to leave, what is it?
Don't just do something, stand there.
Okay, wait, I'm trying to figure out what you mean by that. Don't just
I'll tell you
do
what
something.
I mean by that.
Stand there.
I've been my whole life so busy running around from pillar to post trying to save the owls, save the whales, clean up the air, do this, all worthy things to do, and I want to do them, and I still can do them, but you have to make sure you have your quiet time and don't run around the whole time frantic and upset and angry at people because you want to save anything. Don't do anything for a while. Get serene, get your center, then you'll be more empowered to do more work. Do 2 things well rather than 14 things badly. Yeah, I'll be part of your environmental board. Yeah, I'll be part of that one too. And I'll do the other one. I'll mail letters on Wednesday, and I'll come by Thursday and I'll make the picket signs. We'll do this and we'll do that. All wonderful things, but don't do more than you can do. We shouldn't be lackadaisical about it. We have climate change to deal with. We can't also just do nothing, be lazy, but I don't need that note at all. The note I need to hear is don't just do something, stand there. Get centered, get some measure of serenity in your life, then go do. You'll do much better that way.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
I really appreciate this talk.
Me too, Kara.
I wish you all the best.
And to you.
Okay, so that's Ed Begley. The dead body in the trash can story, I know we never got to it. I am sorry about that. But it is in Ed's memoir, which you can get at my Amazon shop. Just click on the link in today's show notes. And by the way, Ed has a line of eco-friendly products called Begley's Earth Responsible Products. You can get those on my Amazon shop as well. I'm Kara. Thanks for hanging out with Ed and me. Before we close today's episode, let's do the fun little chat with all those behind-the-scenes voice factoids with Tim from soundBOX. Tim.
Yes.
It is so great to be here. This is one of my favorite places like in the universe. I come here to tape my show a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really famous, and I love it. And I bring my guests in, and they're welcomed so warmly, and you give me a great product at the end of it. And
thank you.
So I'm happy to be here, and thank you for all of this.
Happy to have you.
So we're at soundBOX LA.
Yep.
And that's your studio.
My studio. Yep.
And you own the studio, and you have several locations.
Yep. Yeah, we have 2. We have soundBOX Woodland Hills and soundBOX West Side. And those are all kind of the same thing. They're really, very high quality home studios. And that's what we have.
So who comes in here besides me?
Besides you, one of the things we've done for a long time is we kind of specialize in high profile clients. We're a really tucked away place that's not listed publicly on Google. You can, if you search for us, it'll send you up the block, so you can't actually get here. So we've worked for a long time since 2015 or 2016 or so with really high profile clients for kind of these same things on these podcasts. And then we do a ton of video game work and a lot of ADR. We do Chicago PD and some other ADR stuff. So that's when somebody has to come back in and pick up lines. And so instead of going back to a set, they'll go into like a studio and pick up. They made a mistake on a line or they need to fix something in there. So we do that.
Right. So let's talk about that for a second for the average person, because I think I told you the story that I was chatting with Tim Daly once, and more than once, because he's on my show a lot. And this one time he was just talking about looping, and he's like, "Oh, I have to go back for looping." And I was like, "What's looping?" And he's like, "What? You don't know what looping is?" Oh, I forgot you're a civilian, is what he said.
Yeah, exactly.
So he had to explan to me what looping is, which is ADR, what you just said. So that is automatic dialogue replacement.
Automatic dialogue replacement. And there are kind of 2. There's kind of looping and there's ADR. They're kind of similar but different. So like a lot of loop groups. Like if you have, say, you have like a movie in a cafe. Everybody else, you would normally hear the sounds of the cafe and people talking in the background. When you record the scene on set, nobody else can talk because you wouldn't hear the actors. So what you do is you go back in and do ADR looping, and you fill in all those background voices. So you'll see a scene, they'll loop the scene a few times, and you'll pick out, okay, I'm going to be that person over there talking to this person, and then you have to basically just improv and come up with a conversation, which is just bland of like, hey, how you doing? Oh, good. All right. What are you doing today? Oh, well, I got to go to work today after work, and then then I'm going to go to the gym, and then I got to go home and walk the dog, and what do you get today for coffee? Just like all the background chatter that you would normally hear, and then there's ADR. Where you actually go back in and either do a voice match, or the celebrity will go back in, or the actor will go back in and fix a line. Either they flubbed it in the delivery, or a lot of times if it's shot outside, maybe you couldn't actually hear very well. The lav mic didn't work, or the boom mic they had, so they'll go back in and fix. And sometimes they need to change the line in a scene. The line doesn't work, or they have to or they want to change. You can change the course of a scene if you change a line in something, so you can do that as well. So a lot of times the actor will go back in and redo those lines. A lot of times there's a voice match, because you're not going to hire Brad Pitt to come back in and say a couple of words. You'll hire somebody who sounds like Brad Pitt to go in and fix a couple of those words. So there's a strong possibility that if you don't see somebody's mouth on camera, an actor's mouth on camera, you may not actually be hearing their voice. You could be hearing a voice match, or a dialogue that they went back in and recorded later. And you can hear that sometimes in like older movies where for some reason like one sentence just sounds really weird.
Yeah, I've definitely witnessed that.
Yeah, that's an overdub. They went back in and fixed that line afterwards, and they watched themselves on camera and matched the line they said, or they had to change the line, or something just sounds weird. It's so much better now than it used to be. But every once in a while, you pick up like one word or something that was, especially during any things that were shot during COVID. A lot of times you could hear some things that were recorded in studio beforehand, and then they had to pick up a line from somebody's home afterwards, right? So because you had to do what you had to do,
right?
Anyway, so that's the long version of all of that. So
and you have been one of those people, or you can be one of those actors, the voice actors who comes in and does a line. It's a voice match, you called it?
This is called a voice match,
Right.
Yeah.
So I wonder if anybody can guess who you would be a voice match for.
Well, that's a good question. Like my mama Dottie used to always say, that's a riddle wrapped up inside a conundrum. So
so that is so perfectly Jason Sudeikis. I kind of can't believe that you always have sounded like him.
I've always sounded like, I had no idea. I mean, it's one of those things like I just think I sound like myself, obviously. Everybody thinks they sound like themselves. But there's some people who specialize in voice match, and I don't. That's nothing I've ever really done. But I booked a voice match, and voice match for Jason Sudeikis in the new movie Blue Beetle. And I play a character in the movie. I'm Ted Cord at the end of the movie, and actually have an entire scene. So it's not really a voice match. It's more of like an ADR thing. It's like a loop right? Because they had a digital image on the screen, and I played the voice of the image on the screen.
So watch the digital image, and then your mouth just kind of does it, or your voice does it?
They in this case, it's so the way that it's scrambled. It's like it's a very distorted digital image. So you kind of see the image moving and talking. So I didn't have to actually do match called lip flaps. We call them lip flaps.
Oh, there's a lot of technical terms here.
It's crazy. But we did a lot in dubbing. I do a lot of dubbing work as well, where you're dubbing you're replacing the Japanese language with English.
Okay.
So I do a lot of anime work where we replace the English or replace the Japanese with English.
Okay. So you do that outside, or you do that here at the studio?
I do it outside. I do that as the voice actor in other studios.
Oh, okay.
So I go out and do that. So there's a big one. The biggest one I'm on now is Record of Ragnarok on Netflix.
Okay.
Which is an anime dub on Netflix. And so it's all originally was in Japanese, and then the entire cast, the whole show, is then re-recorded in English. It's localized, so it's recorded in all the different languages. So that you can see it localized.
So people aren't so instead of watching it with subtitles, they can listen to or watch it dubbed.
Yeah, you can watch it. There's a dub and a sub. So dubbed with the actual language over it, or subtitled.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people really prefer the sub. They'd like to hear the original Japanese performance and then read what it is that they're saying.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because I watch a lot of shows with subtitles because they're European or wherever they're from.
Yep.
And so I know though that there have been shows that I recommend to people, and I have to always say like, "Are you okay with subtitles?"
Yeah.
Plenty of people are not.
Yeah.
But that is an option that, I mean, I probably should give them that option too, because there's this one, or there are like two shows. One is Gomorrah, it's in Italian. Okay. And another one is Borgen, and it's Danish. Yeah, okay. And they're like the greatest shows. But there are people who will not watch because they have subtitles. But there is that option. Yeah. They can just.
Sometimes, not always. Sometimes there's a dub. Sometimes there's only a sub.
So, okay, so tell me something about also, because I believe that I was here once a few years ago. This is when I had Jason Ritter on my show and we came here. Yep. And I think that as I arrived, the voice of Porky Pig, I want to say, was leaving.
Oh, Bob Bergen, yeah.
Bob Bergen.
Yeah. Bob Bergen was probably leaving, yeah.
Right, because I remember he did a little Porky Pig voice, and he has a lot of those voices.
Yep.
So that's the other kind of thing that the voice actors, are they very specifically, like he's mostly a Like an animated?
Animation, yeah. He'd be doing animation. But he does a lot of commercials as well. I mean, a lot of voice actors do everything. You'll do a ton. I mean, I do most of what I do. I'm specialized in I sound like this. I'm not a character voice, right? I'm not Daffy Duck. I'm not Porky Pig. I'm not Donald Duck. I'm not Mickey Mouse. I'm not any of those things. I just can't do those voices. Bob is one of those people who does everything. And he can do narration. He can do the Porky. He does Porky Pig. I think he's Tweety Bird as well. And various other actors, other characters in those things. But then he also does commercials and serious work that is, narration or drama. But it's everything. I mean, any place you hear a voice, it's a voice actor, right? Any place there's a voice, training videos, e-learning modules. You have all the COVID protocol that came out when all the HR videos you have to watch if you're going at a company, right? That's all VO, the announcements at the airport, any of those things. IVR, the interactive voice response systems that you talk to, that say, hi, if you're calling so-and-so, dial 1 or whatever it is.
Siri.
Right? Siri. Yeah. Siri's AI generated synthetic voice.
Okay.
That would be a synthetic voice.
But wasn't there a woman?
Originally, Susan Bennett was the original.
Right.
I believe it's Susan Bennett.
Yeah. That's who it is.
She was the original. She was the original voice of Siri, but it didn't know what it was that she was recording. Just went in and recorded a bunch of stuff.
That's right. So she kind of got screwed over.
Probably, yeah.
So she went to record for like a phone system or something like that?
I don't know exactly what it was she thought she was doing, but it was something that didn't exist. So it's very hard to put a value and a price and knowledge on something that doesn't exist yet. Had they been, they could have been more forthright with her up front, but now you're talking about business secrets and technological advances that you can't have a voice actor. Voice actors are under NDAs. It's very strict. A lot of times you have to, some studios, you have to leave your phone in a locker when you go inside. Because a lot of these projects, games take years to develop, and voice actors sometimes are working on projects for 3 or 4 years before they're even announced.
Okay, so what's going on what are they doing for 3 years with the voice?
Recording.
Recording
Just
what?
Recording. This is, it could be anything. It's fights. I mean, these video games are so massive, right? Some of these games are open world games, meaning that you can go anywhere in the game. And so you have massive, massive storylines. And these games, people want to play them for, 30, 40 hours. You need to have consistent gameplay. And there's side stories. They're massive stories, right? They're massive movies. Imagine if you watched a movie, but then could take any one of those scenes and let's follow this character over here and go do this one. So you have to have that possibility. And let's watch this scene. And now what happens if we don't walk through that door in this scene? What happens if we do walk through the door? What happens if we decide to fight this person in this next scene, but not in this next scene? And you have just massive, there's story arcs and there's sub stories and there's these lines that go off in this direction with this sub character, minor character over here, or the main character that has worlds and worlds to get through, and you have to record all of that.
So that comes in as different scripts, I guess.
They actually they're giant Excel spreadsheets. And you have your lines, and you go down and you do your line, and sometimes you have context, and sometimes you don't. A lot of the times you do. Them? You do multiple takes of it, and then when they put it together in the end, you hopefully, or the director, you have a director who knows the story and is able to know what the context is and to make sure that it's consistent with the character and where you are in the scene. But yeah, I mean, lots of it is thousands, hundreds of thousands of lines.
It's a lucrative job.
Can be sometimes.
I mean,
sometimes.
It feels like a really great job, a desirable job.
It's a desirable job. It's it's a business. You are a brand. You're a brand, and you have to sell yourself and you have to market yourself. You wake up every day unemployed, right? And you're trying to find work, and hopefully you'll have something that day. But most voice actors just work 40 hours a week auditioning. And it's that constant grind, and there's a lot of regular work that can be had. But with changes in technology, there's a lot of the work that's going to go away. There's a lot of things that are disappearing, becomes more competitive. I think that in a good way, I think that's going to raise the bar for those. You just have to be better in order to get booked. So I think we're going to see a lot of people who don't really put the effort in, or who think it's an easy job, who think it's just something I can buy like a cheap microphone and just record in my living room, and that's all you need to make 6 figures, are finding out that's not true. We call it voice acting for a reason. Acting is number 2, right? Voice is number 1. If you don't have the right voice for the job, it doesn't matter how good your acting is. But if you have the great voice for that job, and you're a great actor, you're gonna work work a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, so advice for somebody who wants to become a voice actor, what would you tell them to do?
Explore, train, coach, and believe people when they tell you that it's not easy and you won't make it big in the first year. But there's a great big community out there, people who love to help other voice actors. It is competitive. If you go to some of the online casting sites, you're competing against 1 million other voice actors. It is competitive, and it's something that you have to really want to do. You have to really want to stand in a padded room for 8 hours a day talking to yourself. And if that's what you really enjoy doing, then this is the right career for you. And if it's not, then don't do it. There's many other great things out there to do. It's not a get rich quick scheme. You're not going to make a lot of money right off the bat, and probably won't make a lot of money for a while, if at all. Now what they're doing is quantity. They're taking, I'm gonna take in 500 or 1,000 auditions, and I'll take my time to sift through them. The pool is bigger, so yes, definitely. The sooner you can get it in, the better. I think that definitely happens a lot for booked work. And if you work in promo or I do a lot of political work, so I work in the political campaigns. You've got
like
15.
What are we talking about?
I do Senate campaigns for Senate candidates, governors.
For commercials.
For commercials, yeah.
Oh.
I was last year. I did the commercials for Raphael Warnock campaign in Georgia. I've done stuff for like the Wisconsin Supreme Court that had their big thing happening earlier this year. Various governors, so-and-so is great for the community. You should vote for this person. This person is bad. Don't vote for that person. I do a lot of that stuff, but a lot of those have 15-minute turnaround times. Like you book it and you got 15 minutes to go in and record it and turn it in, because a lot of times voiceover is the very last thing to go into a project. The whole thing's done. They have a temp voice now. They put the voice in, and something happened at 9 o'clock. They have to record it at 11 and go to air at noon to counter what just happened in the morning. Or they've got something that's, they're preparing. We have to get this commercial out before the 5 o'clock news. Or we know that somebody's going to make an announcement at 7 o'clock tonight, so we got to have ours out by 6. And so it moves that fast.
It's really fascinating. I find this whole thing so interesting. I really do. Like, people don't know anything about this.
Yeah, it's
if you're not in the voice acting world.
If you're not, and that's part of what one of the other things I do as advocacy group is working alongside other voice actors to raise the profile of what voice acting is within the industry, because it is not just. It's not just acting. It's, I can do on camera. I can just do this. I'll just, I'll do this in my spare time. It's a full-time job, and it is a unique skill set. It is a unique industry. It's a unique business. It's unique marketing. The jobs are very unique, and it operates in a way that most people aren't familiar with and aren't always comfortable working with this speed or this constant rejection, if you want to call it rejection.
Mm-hmm.
We call it selection over rejection. I've done enough casting that very rarely do you reject somebody, but you listen, you go, yeah, good, and then you go, yep, that's the one I want.
That's so interesting. I love that. That should apply also to a lot of things.
Should apply to a lot of things. Selection versus rejection. It's almost always select. Every once in a while you go, oh, well, that voice is not, that's not going to work for this game at all, or this is going to be good for this casting. But most of the time you're like, if you're getting a good casting director or a good pool of talent, you'll have 99% of people could very well do that job. And it's going, okay, well, this is great, but you know what? The music we have over here isn't going to work with that voice, so we have to go with this voice. Or, as we've seen in multiple times, they pick a voice and the music didn't work, so now they got rid of that music and replaced the music. And now they have two voices that work really well, but now those two voices don't work together, so now we have to replace this one voice actor, and this voice actor gets to stay, but this music has to go. And so a lot of times it's like, everything's great, but they just don't work great together, and so you have to find different ways of doing that. But we try and say selection, not rejection, because 99% of the time it is just, wow, that's really good, that's great, wow, that's great, and then you go, yep, that's the one we want. Or it's 10 people that are like, any one of these people would be great, let's pick that one, great, call them and let's book them. So, and it's not that they rejected the other 9 people, it's that the other 9 people were great for it, they just don't have 9 spots.
That is a gem. I am so happy that you shared that, because that's something to share with everybody for all reasons.
Yeah.
That is a gem. This whole talk was super insightful.
Go.
I'm excited to share it with people, so
awesome.
Thank you for all of it.
You're welcome.
I'm Kara. Thanks for listening.
This is Ed Begley, and I had a wonderful conversation with Kara. I suggest you listen in to my episode and many others. There's lots of wisdom there. Thank you, Kara, for a great time together.